Hey guys, and welcome to episode 36 of the Revive Yourself podcast. Here we go.
Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Have you got a health issue that just won't go away no matter what you try? Then welcome to the Revive Yourself podcast, where we reveal the secrets to long-lasting health by getting to the root cause of problems that no one else is talking about. So you can have more energy, clear skin, healthier hair, a leaner physique, more confidence, and most importantly, do the things you love and live the life you deserve. Here's your host, Ryan Martin.
So guys, welcome to episode 36 of the Revive Yourself podcast. Hope you're all well. Hope you're all good. Hope you're enjoying this, autumnal weather. Blue skies and crisp days are lovely. The grey skies and rain, not so much. But, we got to go with it. So, as always, guys, hope you've all been enjoying the content we've been putting out. Have a look at everything's over at www.reviveyourself.co. Lots of articles there, and I've got a free 4-day mini course there for anyone who's got a chronic issue. Point them in that direction. As always, been having some really good interviews, the ones with Dax and Dr. Richard Hansler in particular. And today we've got Anne Margolis from www.homesweethomebirth.com talking all about, obviously, birth and giving birth holistically. So Anne, her backstory, she's going to go into it on the show, but she deals with, she's got a community of over 70,000 women. She's dealing with teaching people how to make birth a less traumatic experience, because these days women, they talk about birth, it's a very fearful event for them. Always talk about getting the oxygen and medication, having drugs, making sure they're at hospital. And to be honest with you, traditionally it was never like this, and it hasn't got to be this way. And in fact, if you see any animal give birth in the wild, they're on their own. And back in the day in the tribes, people used to go with their mum and they give birth, and it's something that we touch on. So there's a lot that we go into with Anne, and this is just this is like the pre-episode, because we're setting the scene here. We're going to get Anne back on the show a bit later on to talk about, we're going into more depth into certain issues, especially when it comes to postpartum depression and recovery. 80% of women go through depression after having had the baby blues. So we're going to go into that. We'll be going into lots of different ways to have birth naturally and without pain, and we touch on lots of different subjects as well as vibrational healing. But in this episode, we're going to set the scene to get Anne, let Anne tell you her backstory and go into how she got into what she's doing now and how she's helping thousands and thousands of women all over the world. So without further ado, here is Anne. Enjoy the episode, and I'll see you on the other side. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 36 of the Revive Yourself podcast. Today we have Anne Margolis. I'm saying that right, Anne? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Perfect. So Anne, from New York, or upstate New York, downtown New York. Where are you from?
I'm from Philadelphia, which is about a few hours from here south. But I've raised my family in. It's kind of northwest of the city. Right. I can get, without traffic, I can get there in an hour.
Perfect. And how is it today over there?
It's a beautiful fall day.
Yeah, it's one of my favourite times of the year. Fall and spring are two of my favourite times.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. I like fall, spring, and summer.
Yeah, and not winter. Yeah. Well, yeah. In New York. Actually, I was over in New York last December, January time, over New Year's, because my ex-girlfriend, her father lives out there. And to be honest with you, it was cold, but it wasn't as cold as I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not.
Right.
I mean, when I hear about,
it depends.
I thought it was going to be minus 20, minus 30, but it was only about, I don't know, minus 5, minus 10.
Yeah.
So it wasn't Chicago cold, which I was happy about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe because you're also used to the cold, because it's probably colder in England where you are, right, than it gets here.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I think New York gets pretty cold. So
it does. Well, too cold for me, so that's why I like to migrate south when it gets in
Yeah,
the
in fact,
January, February.
yeah, the last day we were there, in fact, we had like 8 inches of snow in about 3 hours. So that, I know that it can get real bad over there. But
Oh, we can get a foot, 2 feet. Yeah, 2 feet is what they would consider like a national disaster. I mean,
yeah,
a state of emergency. But
yeah,
yeah, we can get easily a foot, easily, and then it goes on top of each other. So then again, if it snows again, then it's more and more. But I think it's the cold and the wind and just being indoors a lot that
yeah.
I'm a very active. I love outdoors. I love sun. I love warm. I love the ocean. I love swimming. So
So you better
that's
move
why I
then.
like. Well,
I'm
yeah,
only joking.
yeah. My whole family said that would be lovely if I could get everyone to, right, move to Costa Rica or Hawaii or something. Yeah.
Or just to the west coast. The west coast. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've been working on it for 30 years, so it's.
So, guys, Anne it has her own website at www.homesweethomebirth.com. And as she first came across Anne on social media quite a few years back, tried to interview her before, but I've only just got her on the show now. But what Anne does is, well, obviously, Home Sweet Home Birth sort of explains itself, all about getting women to almost enjoy the birthing process rather than it being what has become now is quite a fearful practice. And just for the audience out there, can you just tell them how you got into what you do and what started your journey into home birthing and natural birthing?
Yes. Well, and I also just wanted to clarify, like my title of my website is Home Sweet Home Birth, but I promote what I'm very passionate about, promoting that model of care in the hospital, in the birthing center, in the home, or even in the operating room. It's a certain model of care that I'll talk about. That brings the power back to the woman and her family, that restores humanity and celebration to the process.
Yep.
But how I got into it. So back in the day, like when I was in college and I was in nursing school and I did my obstetric rotation, that's when I realized I wanted to be working with moms and babies and their families. I learned a lot about natural birth in college, and I got very excited about it. And when I landed my first job out of nursing school, first we in the United States, or at least when I was practicing as a nurse, you have to do a year of medicine and surgery, nursing, before you go into obstetrics. So I did my time, and then I went into being an obstetric nurse. And I worked in the hospital for several years, and it was there that I developed an extreme fear of birth. And that was partly because birth was considered on the unit where I worked, and I now know that this is very common in many hospitals in this country and around the world, where birth is considered like a disaster waiting to happen, like a potential lawsuit, a crisis could happen any minute. And so it was scary, and it was like this emergency scene all the time, it felt like, and I wasn't seeing natural birth actually. And as a nurse, I was having to rescue a lot of the problems that were caused by the interventions that were just done routinely to any woman walking into the hospital. And I was seeing bad outcomes that were, I'm very sensitive, so when I see a mother or baby die, or be very ill or damaged by the birthing process, I carry that in my heart, and it takes me a while to get over it, And I was seeing more I was assisting at way more cesarean sections than I ever thought would be happening. It felt like I was in the operating room more than I was in the delivery room. So of course, then when I got pregnant, I was young when I had my first baby. I was 24, but I was already scared. And as from all the work that I've done, fear is kind of like the enemy. Inner stress is really causing a lot of problems in the world of health, right? But it's certainly the enemy of labor. And so, and I kept telling the doctor, He was a colleague of mine. He worked on the unit where I was, and I kept telling him I'm scared, and he's like, "Don't worry." He kept just saying, "Don't worry," and our appointments were 5 minutes, but I was worried, and my biggest fear was having a cesarean, and dying or having a damaged baby, because I saw that, right, and so when I went into labor, I was already, and I'd taken Lamaze, but it's still, it didn't address my fear. And so when I went into the labor and delivery unit, so the first thing, first of all, I was treated royally because one of the staff members is having a baby, right? So they thought they were giving me the royal treatment, and actually they meant well. And they were giving me the royal treatment, but the royal treatment was still the standard treatment that happens to every woman that walks in the hospital. So number one, I had to take my clothes off and put on a hospital gown, which creates dependence. It disempowers you. I know that now. It makes you feel like you're sick and that they're going to do everything to take care of me.
I think the whole just going to hospital, I mean, people just equate that with being sick anyway, don't they,
Oh yeah. But like now, like if someone is going to birth in the hospital, I'm not alone in encouraging women to wear their own clothes. Okay. But I didn't know that then, right? So I had all the standards. So I was, hospital gown, told not to eat or drink. Have you ever run the marathon or done anything like a huge athletic event and fast? Yeah. So like labor is a big deal for the body. The body's working very hard, and I'm told not to drink or eat nourishment. So that's problem number 2, but I didn't know that at the time. Then I'm put in bed. So I'm put in bed and attached to an IV to give fluids at least. But in bed kind of goes counter to labor. Now that I'm a midwife, I know that when women are in labor, naturally they assume an upward position because we need gravity. The body knows what's more comfortable, and the body knows, that we need gravity. It's like the wisdom of the process, right? We need gravity, and we need the mother to be changing positions so the baby can navigate its way down, his or her way down.
Well, Anne, if you see any animal, they give birth standing up, correct? Most of them?
Absolutely. But, I was just 24 and a scared nurse right now.
Of course. I'm just...
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I'll get into that. But, so no animal would give birth on their back scared. Meaning if a deer is aware that there's a lion around or a tiger, that deer will stop labor and, run and get to safety. And, cats are always going to a private place. I mean, all animals, right? Mm-hmm. It's fascinating to study animals and the way they birth. But, so when I was put down on my back and they were monitoring every heartbeat of my baby, every contraction, and I had to stay still because every time I moved, they couldn't read the monitor. So, of course, I had to be dilating. I had to be opening. I was on a time clock. I had to be opening a centimeter an hour to full 10 centimeters of my, the womb opens to full 10 centimeters. But I was in labor, a scared woman who is not being nourished and is on the back. It's almost nearly impossible. I mean, it's fighting against all the odds to be able to labor well in that situation.
It just goes against everything that's sort of like common sense and even nature. It's just like they want everything to be done by a clock. It's just madness.
It's madness, but it's happening all over the country. Yeah, not necessarily. The UK is a wonderful example of midwifery care. But anyway, so the doctor kept coming in and sticking his hand up me without even telling me he was giving me an exam, and he said he walked out the room and he said to my colleague nurse, he said, "She's still 4. She's still 4. She's still 4." And so I heard him at one point say, "Hang pit," which is, we call it, it's the synthetic oxytocin, which is the medication that, I was a nurse, I knew what pit meant, Pitocin. It's the medication that causes the uterus to contract much more unnaturally more, intense, more frequently, more longer, right? So I knew that I did not want that, but the nurse comes in and she starts putting it in the IV, and I told her I didn't want it. She says, "Oh, but honey, you don't want a cesarean." So no, like I was vulnerable at that point. I'm like, no, I don't want a cesarean, right? So I was kind of feared into having the Pitocin. And of course, once that happened, then the whole cascade of events happened, which was my Lamaze went out the window. I wasn't able to cope with, being still and having way more intense, longer contractions. And then they gave me an epidural. And when they gave me an epidural, which is a shot in the back and around the fluid around the spinal cord to numb me from the waist down, that's when the baby's heart rate went down very dangerously low. And they called an emergency cesarean operation. And that's when it became a crisis. Everyone was really, I could see it in everybody's eyes. They were scared. I was scared because now my biggest fear was happening. And, they whisked, there was like tons of people, and they were whisking me away into the operating room, preparing me in a rush, because when there's such an emergency, when my baby's heart rate was so dangerously low, you got to get that baby out in 10 minutes, basically 10, 15 minutes. I mean, you really don't have time. And so they put me in the operating room and did all that and then left. And then I was worried because I was alone. They didn't let my husband in, and I was looking at the clock, and I was seeing it was 15 minutes, and then it was a half an hour, and then it was 45 minutes. And then in that time, I was convinced my baby was damaged. And then by an hour, I was convinced she was dead. And they were waiting for the assistant surgeon to come. Now, a miracle happened. The epidural that numbed my body from the waist down made me dilate completely. And then I started pushing after about an hour. And I started calling out for help. And the doctor comes running in and he sees that I'm pushing. So then he has to redo a plan. Okay, he started screaming out, "Get me the vacuum," which is like the baby suction, which they vacuum her out. They vacuumed the baby out. They put a suction on the baby's head. He cut a big episiotomy and vacuumed her out. And she was pink, and she had a fine heartbeat. They didn't even have to do any resuscitation. She was breathing. She was totally physically fine. I was not fine. And now I know what that is. That's called birth trauma. When you're afraid someone close to you or you is going to have, some, death or a very significant injury, a normal response to that is a trauma, that there's a fight or flight response that, and that has symptoms. So I was not right at all. I was afraid to look at her. I was having nightmares about the experience. I was afraid to go back to work, to face the whole unit again. I was, I had symptoms of trauma. I was re-experiencing the experience all the time. I didn't want to talk about anything that reminded me of it. I had the classic symptoms of trauma, but nobody knew what it was then. So they was like, what are you so upset about? You had a healthy baby, and which is the worst thing to say when someone has trauma. But anyway, I got over it, and as best as I could, and I went back to work, and I'm still, frustrated, let's say, by what I'm seeing, these same kind of things that I was, explaining, and to you, but I told my husband I don't want to have any more children. I'm done. And he wants 6, right? I'm like, well, yeah, so of course, two and a half years later, I am pregnant again. And I'm still working as a nurse on this unit. And I was even more scared. I was having panic attacks, and, it was not a fun pregnancy. And, I went to, labor and I had very similar experience. I had a different doctor, and when I was in labor with my second, examined me, and he walked out again. Same thing, a different doctor, didn't talk to me. I'm his colleague. He walked out and he told the nurse, prep the OR because her baby is too high and posterior. It's never going to come down. And now I had a voice. You know, I was a bit more experienced and I was a bit older. And I called him back and I said, I don't want a cesarean. And I want you to do whatever you need to do to turn my baby and get her down. You know, that's basically what I told him. He says, well, it's going to be agony. I mean, you know, or you know, he was really discouraging and I don't even think it's going to work. I said, I want you to turn my baby. Now, as a midwife, I would never tell a woman that. I would say, oh, we have plenty of babies that are high and posterior. Let's get up and walk around and let's get on your hands and knees. Or, you know, there's certain things that we can do to get your baby to come down and turn into a position, you know. But he just gave up on me before even giving me a chance. Mm-hmm. So anyway, he did, you know, stick his hands all the way up into my uterus and rotated her manually. And you know, because I said I gave birth before, my body did it. So like, I know I can do it. But so I did give birth, but it was, I remember after that experience, I was talking to a friend of mine about my frustrations, about, you know, how I love helping moms and babies and their families, about my 2 births, but my hands are tied as a nurse. I don't know what to do. And she was in midwifery school. She said, you need to become a midwife. Now, this was, we didn't have internet back then. And I'm like, what's the midwife? I really, you know, now midwives have been around for thousands of years and basically have been catching babies. There's, you know, all over the world for thousands of years, but I had not heard of one. And I didn't even know there was such, you know, an option. And it, you know, in the United States, it's a master's degree training. So I know in the UK, you just go right into midwifery school, where in New York, you have to have a bachelor, a 4-year degree in nursing, and then you go to a master's, you know, graduate degree in midwifery. Well, I went to the library and I researched everything I could, and I knew I had to apply. And when I applied and I got in and I started, I'm telling you, I came home. And the philosophy in midwifery is that women's bodies know how to grow, birth, and breastfeed a baby like our hearts know how to pump and our lungs know how to breathe. It is a normal process. It is a sacred process. It is a process that has been in community, in celebration all over the world, and that we need to look at birth as normal until proven otherwise, just as we need to look at a healthy person as having a normal heart and lungs until they have a heart disease or a lung, you know, or asthma, right? Or a lung disease. We treat them as healthy. We don't stick and prod and interfere with their breathing and their heart beating, right? We let it happen. So that's the space of which I was approaching birth. And it was a total reorientation to the process. And yes, we have to be skilled at assessing, you know, and making sure that the process is still healthy. And we have to know how to intervene. But sometimes, you know, when there's a problem, but intervention doesn't necessarily mean medicine and surgery. It could mean, you know what, let's get in the tub. Let's dance. Let's take a walk. Yep. You need to eat more. You need to drink more. Maybe you need privacy. Maybe you need it doesn't have to be So what I learned then, that obstetricians, and this is how it is in the UK, you know, in Holland, in the UK, in Sweden, in a lot of the countries that have way far better outcome statistics than the United States. The United States ranks among the bottom in terms of maternal mortality and morbidity, and neonatal mortality and morbidity, meaning we're losing more babies and mothers or having serious illness around pregnancy and birth than most other modern industrialized countries in the world, despite having among the highest rates of medical and surgical intervention, right? So what's working? And so Dr. Marsden Wagner, who was, and also Michel Audin, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's the famous, renowned French obstetrician who overturned his unit, and he's now doing home births in England. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's he's very outspoken in the birthing community, and other obstetricians are as well. But what I was learning in midwifery was to create the space and give the power back to the woman and create the space for the process to occur. So so what became a surgery and medical intervention and the crises, let's say, became way more the exception than the rule. Okay. And so when you have the obstetrician and midwife working together in their expertise, then you have excellent outcomes. So, for example, an obstetrician is a surgeon. He specializes in detecting complications and diseases using all these fancy equipment and technology to do so, and treating it medically or surgically. So, if you go to somebody like that, in Sweden, it's someone who is considered, let's say, high risk, has insulin-dependent diabetes or a seizure disorder or some, triplets, that's using the doctor for his expertise, and leaving the vast majority of healthy women to see midwives. And then you have a balance, the excellent outcome that we're seeing in the countries where that's happening, right? So, and I've heard Michelle O'Don, and I love this. Like, I was at a midwifery big midwifery conference where there was hundreds of seasoned midwives in the room, and an obstetrician, Dr. Michelle O'Don, is speaking, and he says, "What is the most important intervention that a midwife can do at a birth?" And seasoned midwives who had caught thousands of babies were all raising their hands, and everybody was wrong. What would you think he said? No
intervention.
Yeah. Even worse. I mean, or even better.
Yeah.
To knit.
To knit.
Oh, right, yeah. KNIT. Why? Because you have a very experienced, wise midwife exuding calm. Yeah. She's knitting. Her hands are occupied. So they don't need to meddle in something when it's working. But her eyes are wide open. Her ears are wide open. She can talk to the woman and give her the love and encouragement she needs to remind her of her power and her strength when she doubts it. And her heart is wide open. No. And so when a woman is sensing this calm and this love,
very different,
and this
right?
empowerment,
to a medical,
yeah, and this is coming from an obstetrician. And sure, she knows how to put the knitting down if she needs to deal with a problem or an emergency. We're trained in that. But the vast majority of times it works. And then the woman, I'm in awe. I'm in awe of how little we need, how, if any, basically we really don't have to do anything. Yeah. I mean, other than, be the lifeguard in the background the coach creating that space.
This is the thing, Anne, right? Because a lot of people think they've turned into I mean, even over here, I know you said we got good, it's good over here, midwifery, and it is, but when women, my friends who have been pregnant and family members or whatever it is, they're all very worried, and they're always thinking, I'm getting the oxygen or the drugs and etc. And it's become quite a frightening thing for them. I mean, first of all, just quickly, you said that you've had a C-section the first time, and most people don't.
No, I didn't. I didn't have a C-section.
The first time, didn't you?
No, I barely.
Oh, okay.
I gave birth vaginally with a vacuum. I narrowly missed it. I gave birth in the operating room.
Brilliant.
The second, my baby 3 and 4 were with the midwife.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, because a lot of people don't realise it's okay to have a C-section, but what women don't realise is that the baby's first introduction to life-giving probiotics is through the vaginal canal, and it's very, very important in terms of health in long term.
Oh yeah.
And then, as you said before, we'll get into it, and I'm sure having come back in tribal cultures, etc., the midwife was the mother, right? They'd go in and
with women,
yeah, would go in and give birth, and it wasn't like something that, oh my God, give her the oxygen and pump her for the drugs, and everyone come around them. It would be a big.
No, it's part of life.
It's part of life, right? It was just part of life, and the mum go in there. And the thing is, a lot of people, when people talk about home births, they're worried about all the things that could go wrong. But I just wanted to say, because over here in 2015, only 2.3% of people had a home birth, but in 2011, there was a study that looked at adverse outcomes of babies, so death, serious injury, and illness. The study compared women having a hospital birth to those planning to have a hospital birth to those planning to have a home birth. And the home birth showed a lower risk of having a cesarean section.
Oh, absolutely.
A lower risk of assisted delivery, i.e. using forceps, etc. Less risk of hemorrhage. More likely to have a normal birth. And it also results showed that 88% of planned home births were normal births compared to fewer than 60% of planned births at hospital. And, women been far more relaxed environment, as you said before, around their home, somewhere every day, with people that they feel comfortable with. I mean, that's huge, right? And I just wanted to ask you.
There's multiple studies. The research, there's multiple studies that back this. So much so, do you know, are you familiar with the organization that one of your healthcare regulators called NICE, the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You familiar?
Yep.
Are you familiar with them?
Yep.
Yeah,
Nice.
they came out with a statement based on the evidence just a few years ago. It was published all over the United States, Wall Street Journal, New York Times. So that based on the evidence, they were urging out of hospital birth with midwives or midwife-led birthing centers or midwife-led hospital units. Based on the evidence, they're urging out of hospital birth.
Yep, I can imagine. I mean, I can see why. I mean, it's just straight away. It's most people don't want to go to hospital anyway. It's a place that they see with like illness or death, and the whole medical thing it takes something that's, in my opinion, something that's very natural, very beautiful, could be calming. It's one of those things. They make it build it up into something that people are fearing. So one of the things I wanted to ask was, people who, if you say to them, I have a home birth, oh no, I don't want to do that in case anything goes wrong, for example. I mean, what are women usually most scared of when it comes to home birthing? Is it maybe the baby needing medical care, maybe being bleeding? Would it being born upside down or stillborn, or when is it not advised? And I've asked quite a few questions.
Well, right, yeah. So home birth is not for everyone. I mean, so we do screen. It's for the healthy population, right? So all through the prenatal care and even through the laboring process, we're assessing. We're making sure the woman is still in the healthy, low risk, let's say, situation, right? So what are women, the common fear? Well, common fears I get, women are, first of all, we live in a culture, the modern culture, people are afraid of pain and they just want to numb the pain. Yeah. So I get sometimes women being afraid of pain. And I work with women in rephrasing we don't even use the word pain because pain implies something is wrong, that there's a problem, right? And actually, it's the sensations of labor that actually ease labor, that cause this beautiful balance of hormones that actually helps the mother get into positions that help the baby be born and create this bonding, and so the whole thing is for a reason. And sometimes we have pain. Women have pain every month when they have their menstrual cycle, and that's a healthy part of living. A baby will have pain before a tooth comes. There is pain in life, right? But athletes and dancers and Olympic people in the Olympics, they're working through a lot of pain and discomfort, even though someone running we have the 26-mile marathon here, right? So people are not running and feeling comfortable by mile 15 to 26, right? There are things that are bothering them, but they have a different attitude. The attitude is they're going to do it. The attitude is I can do it. The attitude is I will do it, and nothing's wrong with me. It's not the pain of broken leg, for example. That's a different thing. So it's a different, I help women shift their attitude about, and also the pain or the sensations of labor, come and go, like the waves come and go. And at most it only lasts, in its most intense time, it lasts a minute or a minute and a half. If you can do anything for a minute and a half, and it rises and it falls. It rises and it falls. So even if it's at its most intense point, it's what, 30 seconds. So I encourage everyone to get a now clock. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Every time it says now, right? They sell them on Amazon, and because everyone, I want them to stay present, because right now you can do this for a minute, okay? Then we'll deal with the next. In 5 minutes we'll deal with the next minute, right?
I'll just see what you're saying. Now clock, right? Got you. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no numbers on it. It just always says now. So, but that's one of the fears. Another fear, women are afraid they're not going to be able to handle it. And that, I work with, because I tell them that billions of women have given birth before them, and they handle it. You can handle it, right? You come from generations of women that handled it. And as you're giving birth now, 300,000 women around the world are giving birth, and that you are stronger than you realize. And that when you think you can't handle it at the end, that's when you're going to find your strength and you're going to handle it. And then you're going to be so darn proud of yourself. So that's one component, kind of the psychological. Another component, especially, I say women, if they hear a horror story from somebody, so they think it's going to be contagious and it's going to happen to them. So, my friend, her, or my sister had this happen. And so they think that's going to happen to them. So that I can deal with, because whatever happened to them isn't contagious, right? Mm-hmm. So another thing is, I think the biggest fear a woman has is, let's say, bleeding, hemorrhaging.
Bleeding, yeah, 100%.
Hemorrhaging. And I tell them I've never lost a mom. I carry the same equipment in my bag that an out-of-hospital birthing center would have. I have all the medications and the IVs. We don't start with that. I work very preventatively, and if I see something is looking a little, that's a little too, bleeding is becoming on the heavier side. There's things we can do naturally before we jump to giving medication. But I've never had a woman die of a hemorrhage. I've had to give IVs, I've had to give medications in the home and birth center setting, right? So but
there, you've given them because they're needed, right? You haven't just.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, you give them when and if they're needed. Like
only if they need
we
it.
Talk about antibiotics, taking them when it's the
only
need to take them. Yeah, not just taking them for the sake of it. So that's the difference.
That's the huge difference, and so like holistic care. So I tell women, I'm going to draw from all the holistic the modalities that are effective, right? Mm-hmm. But sometimes holistic care may mean we need to be used and be great. We need to use and be grateful for medical and surgical intervention when it's needed. But the fear of the baby, fear of having a dead or damaged baby, that's a fear, and that's around the world. Not all baby. Some babies are born with heart defects, right? Some babies are born with Down syndrome. Some babies are, it has nothing necessarily to do with the care that's been given, right? But I tell them I'm checking that baby's heart rate. I am monitoring you, making sure you don't have high blood pressure and don't take not on cocaine and heroin and smoking and doing risky behaviors or having risky conditions that could cause your baby to have problems, right, in labor. I don't put you on your back, which with the heavy uterus compresses the major blood vessel going to the placenta, which feeds the baby. And, so I'm not giving you drugs that could compromise the baby's heart rate and, have fetal distress. So I also, my staff, when we go to the birth, we're trained in newborn resuscitation. So if a baby, first of all, I don't cut umbilical cords, because umbilical cords is the way babies get resuscitated. I don't know who invented why we have to cut the cord. The baby's born, immediately we cut the cord. You're severing 1/3 of the baby's blood supply that backed up in the placenta that needs to get back to the baby, getting blood volume and oxygen so the baby can transition to be an independent, breathing human being. Because before, in womb, the lungs are collapsed like collapsed balloons that were never blown up. So the baby's not breathing through the lungs. The baby's breathing through the umbilical cord. So as the baby is born and making this transition, it's this huge body. It's amazing what goes on in the body when the baby transitions when Earthside to the lungs to expand, to the heart to start pumping blood to the lungs. So while that's happening, the baby's getting oxygen and blood volume from the cord. So I've had to resuscitate like huge, significantly less babies than I've had to in the hospital. Oh, really? Just at home. But given that, sometimes even with all the best monitoring, sometimes in the last, as the baby's coming out, let's say the baby's bones, the head is pressing against the cord that's near the pelvis, it could be, right? So the baby is born and doesn't breathe. So in that situation, while the cord is still pumping, sometimes I do have to breathe for the baby using, I have an ambu bag, and we have to be trained and recertify in neonatal resuscitation every 2 years. Okay. That's it's not. We're not. People think, oh, home birth, that's reckless. Like we're just towels, boiling water, and waving herbs, right?
That's the perception. Yeah, that's the perception. People don't realize how skilled you guys are, and that's what I want to get out to people. Because, we've booked in Anne for another conversation because there's a lot to talk about. We want to talk about birth trauma for mums and why to take back their pregnancy and how to do it with unnecessary medical or surgical intervention. All things we're going to touch on next time. But that, I think you just brought up there, Anne, is a very key point of people thinking that it's just like a bunch of almost like hocus pocus, nothing, but it's not. You guys are really, really well. More well trained than most of the people in the hospital when it comes to it.
Well, when it comes to promoting, normal natural birth, and we can intervene if we need to. But look, first of all, I don't. If I what we call, if I, is it a UK phrase to say smell a rat? Because in the United States we can say if I smell a rat, if I see that I'm not liking the way something is happening, for example, like I'm not crazy about the mom's blood pressure going up, and then I see that the baby, let's say had a bowel movement so the fluid that the baby turning the fluid green or brown, right? Mm-hmm. Most of the time, that's if the baby has a bowel movement in the inside, that's just it was a momentary time of stress, and that happened before labor, right? But if some things are like if I smell a rat, then I smell another rat, and I smell another rat, I'm not going to wait till this gets to be a crisis. Because now I'm seeing that this could be a sign. If I'm not liking the direction the baby's heart rate is going, it doesn't, just like suddenly stop, right? You see signs of distress before it becomes a crisis. So I can have that baby in the hospital, before in way shorter time than it took for me. When they called in my situation, remember they called an emergency cesarean and it was an hour and still nobody did it, right? I delivered vaginally before anyone did it. So if I smell a rat, if I see that there's a problem or there's another problem, I'm going to get that mom and baby to the hospital because that's where it's safest for that mother and baby to give birth, Yeah, but my transfer rate is 7%. That means 93% of women are giving birth at home in my practice for over 20 years.
And there you go, and that's a huge stat, right? And as you said before, the hospital's there if you need it, like it should be. It shouldn't be, in my opinion. Each to their own, but in my opinion, it should be something that's used and there if needed. But I'm not a lady. I'm not a woman.
You're not a lady.
But I'd say if I did have to give birth, or I'll tell you what, I'll give you another example. When I've had
you could be a dad one day. You could be a dad one day.
I was going to say I'll be a dad one day. But if I was to have surgery, and I could have it in my bedroom, rather than having to go to the hospital, I'd have it here because I'd feel much more comfortable around surroundings that I know. Yeah, and that's a huge thing, as people say. Like the mind when it comes to health and feeling relaxed and the rest of the body. As you said, your body starts going to shock or starts to feel stress in many different ways. And when you're in a place that's calm, and as you were. We'll talk about when we get you on again, Anne. We'll talk about the vibrational healing. That's once again, it's all energy, right? And when you're in a place where the energy doesn't feel right to you, rather than in a place where you feel relaxed and comfortable, you're going to be a completely different person, you know?
Right, and your body's going to function in a different way. It's like the same energy that gets the baby in, the same. 100%. You need to be intimate, sensual, quiet, safe, undisturbed. You need to feel that to give birth. Yeah. Just like you can feel that to be relaxed in a, and to make love. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, it's like in a healing environment. What to most people is a healing environment? Is it, for example, going? I'll just use this example. Is it going to a spa where they're playing lovely, relaxing music? You've got the essential oils. People are speaking very quietly. You can feel the energy. It's very soothing. Or is it going to a hospital that's 9 times out of 10? It's decorated like death. It smells the food there. It's horrible. Like everyone's walking around in medical gowns. It's very, very. It's like an intimidating place. It doesn't scream health and vitality. It screams disease and death and sickness. And now, for me,
hospital is really it does. And even when people are sick, it really we're not really healing a lot of it's for a limited. If someone, needs acute trauma intervention or needs surgery, but the vast majority of conditions we're really not healing in dignity.
And that's what we talk about all the time on the show. So I know you've got to go, Anne, because you've got an appointment. So what we'll do, guys, as I said before, you can find Anne at www.homesweethomebirth. But any questions you've got, because we're going to get Anne back on, I think we're scheduled in for some time around November, 13th of November, I think it is.
Right.
And we're going to get onto a few of the other things that we mentioned there, all about birthing without unnecessary medical and surgical intervention, mothers taking their birth back, and how to get over birth trauma, etc. So, any questions?
In the meantime, though, like I just wanted to offer your listeners, I have a gift. It's like a free download.
Yep.
To give, so you can have something to take home from this.
Yep.
So if you go to homesweethomebirth.com/gift, right? I made a download of my favorite 154 resources for women who or for women's health, for women who are planning a pregnancy, for women who are pregnant or birthing, postpartum, dads, siblings, inspiration, and also supplies to bring if you're going to, have a home birth, have a birth center birth, have a hospital birth, so that you can start to take back your birth and empower yourself, because knowledge is power. Change comes from when we speak up, not we need to speak up.
100%.
The mom.
And you said the online community of over 70,000 women around the world, guys. So, and those are stuff. So you said before, www.homesweethomebirth.com/gift. I'm on it right now, and as you said, it contains 154 of the best supplies, books and movies that she uses personally and professionally with her clients, family and friends. So that's great. And it's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to getting you back on and us diving deeper into this topic. And any questions?
Great.
That'd be brilliant.
Awesome. Thanks so much. It was a pleasure, Ryan.
No worries. And I'll speak to you soon, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Take care.
Right, bye-bye.
You enjoy in London. Okay, bye-bye. England.
So guys, that was the first interview with Anne. I hope you enjoyed it. We covered a lot of stuff there, went through her backstory. Very, very interesting about what she says, and I hope you took in some of those statistics there, saying that birthplace results showed 88% of planned births at home were normal births compared to fewer than 60% of planned births in the hospital. And as she said there, the techniques they use in the hospital, it's not conducive to having a happy, healthy birth. So we'll be taking that on board, and we'll be going into the next interview. As I said before, any questions you've got, send them over and I'll be asking them to Anne. And as we mentioned a couple of times before, www.homesweethomebirth.com/gift if you want the 154 techniques that she uses. Brilliant. So coming up, guys, what I'm going to be doing is actually going to be putting out more episodes, as well as the longer episodes, which are the interviews of all the expert guests we get on. I'm going to be putting out shorter episodes just with myself, covering lots of content that I put out on social media anyway, but things that come up in the daytime, all the health topics that are out, I'm just going to be putting out daily, or trying to put out daily podcasts for you guys, or at least 3 to 4, maybe 5 episodes a week, just covering all different things, because I always get asked a lot, Ryan, you've been putting this in the podcast, and I think, well, now I might as well do that for you guys, start putting out more episodes on the podcast, because people are loving the episodes and they like listening in their car as well as on their lunch break, etc. So I'm going to be doing shorter episodes in between the longer episodes, which will continue to happen, the bigger interviews. Okay, guys? As always, you can follow us on Instagram at revive_yourself, Facebook at Revive Natural Health, or Facebook/Revive Natural Health. And we're on YouTube, our YouTube channel. Just look for Revive Health, Revive Natural Health. We're on there, Revive Yourself. I should say you can subscribe to our channel there. And if you would like, you can find me on Facebook at my personal page, which is /Ryan Martin. And I'm always putting out lots of good content on there, etc. And obviously, you can head on over to www.reviveyourself.co, where you're going to get lots of great articles, as well as our free 4-day mini course for anyone with any chronic illness you know. You can put them in that direction. Okay, guys, so that's it for this episode. That's it for this week. And, well, I say this week, there should be an episode coming your way, probably tomorrow as well, episode 37. So until then, guys, have a good day. Enjoy yourself. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
If you're struggling with gut issues, such as gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, indigestion, heartburn, and want to finally be able to eat the foods you love without the crippling after effects, then don't forget to head over to reviveyourself.co and pick up your free copy of The Healing Health Paradigm today.